Keeping venomous reptiles is an unforgiving hobby, requiring proper training and lots of experience. One simple mistake can be the difference between life and death. Remember, the most venomous snake in the world is the one that just bit you. There are no venomous snakes with training wheels. Just because you see Viperkeeper handle snakes a certain way does not mean you should try it too.
Little dark to see, but that's our little pygmy rattlesnake. Yep, tagged it. A little tough to see, especially since Lori's blocking the light where she is. Blends in really well. It has quite a potent bite for a relatively small rattlesnake. Most of the bites require 6 or so vials of antivenom, and there is a chance of pretty good tissue damage. So I saw someone that got bit by one of these, and the swelling was quite amazing. Really potent venom. Well, let's see if these coral cobras are interested in having something to eat. Now, these are the offspring of the crazy female. Hello. Would you like this, huh? You got to get it by the head. There we go. That's a good job. Okay, the boy, no nonsense, grabs it right by the head. Although I have to admit, the one that I gave the female didn't have a head, so that made it a little bit more difficult. You can see the female
is ready to go.
She's ready to go, and she's crazy like her mother. Hello. Can I interest you in this, huh? Yep. Okay. She's quite lovely, and as usual filled their water dish with substrate, so I'll have to empty that and fill it up. But these are the juvenile coral cobras. They may be going to a zoo very soon. Hello. Nice to see you. Last but not least, this gal has been patiently waiting all day long. I think Mr. K has been waiting, and I'll take care of Mr. K. 2020 baby. I think I fed her a mouse earlier, so she gets a bonus feed this week. But this is the lesser Sunda Island pit viper, Trimessurus insularis. I have quite a number of these. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I got 15 of them right now. I have a small colony that I use for breeding. I don't breed every year because I don't like to burn the females out. And the males, after breeding, think that they've done their job and they don't need to eat anymore and die. They just go off feed and become really difficult to get feeding. So with that, we'll let her enjoy her meal. I'll go get something for Mr. K, and we'll go on from there. We're in here at the Blue Insularis cage. This gal was born August 30th of 2020. She was designated number 8 of the litter. I forget exactly how many were born. But again, if you look right here, it's a lesser Sunda Island pit viper, Trimessurus insularis. And as I said, this species is found throughout the Indonesian archipelago, all those island chains. And these happen to be blue, but you can get them in green like the rocket. You can get them in turquoise. And there's an island called Wet Tar Island where you can get these bright lemon yellow ones, which I really wish I still had in the collection. But I was breeding them, and my last female I put out on breeding loan, and she passed while at my friend's house. So that was the last of the Wet Tar Island pit vipers. You can still get them, but the exporter said that since this island is out in the middle of the ocean, his trappers will not go unless they can collect and bring back 200, and I would have to buy 200 of them. And for me, you know, going there and pulling 200 animals out of the ecosystem is really not the best plan for sustainability. If you take, you know, maybe, you know, 5 or 10 out of the wild, it's not going to have a huge impact on the animals' well-being in the wild. Going there and collecting 200 for export is just not sustainable. It's not good for the island ecology. It's not good for the species, and it's not good for the trappers either that go out and collect, because eventually they're going to run out of specimens to collect and they're going to be out of business. But at any rate, she was captive bred and born here in August of 2020, and she's a female because A, she's quite large, and B, she eats really well, and the males usually don't eat very well and are rather small. So we'll let her do her thing, and we'll move on to our next stop. Okay, it's on alert. Oh yeah, whoa, there we go, caught alluring.
Very excited, caught alluring.
Oh, the mouse sees the tail moving, it's coming closer. Oh, it's running away.
That is quite a show.
Oh, you missed. There we go. And the tail is still going, and we got Happy Death Adder.
Aww.
So these are Papuan Death Adders from Papua New Guinea here in Jawa, which is part of Indonesia. These have seriously toxic venom, and they're landmines. Unsuspecting people walking along the trail with, you know, no footwear, or through the leaf litter, they step on one of these or step close. It reactive strikes, you know, because they don't necessarily know that it's not a prey item, it's somebody's foot. They get a good dose of venom, and it's a quick-acting pre- and post-synaptic neurotoxin, which causes respiratory paralysis, as well as some other symptomology. Brian Fry describes a bite from a death adder, a native Australian death adder. I'm sure the venom is quite similar. He describes it as somewhat hallucinatory as they slowly drifted towards death. Of course, you know, Brian was, you know, had access to hospital and antivenin, and, you know, recovered from the envenomation. But these are not snakes that the local population, you know, 50% survival rate, depending on whether they can get to the hospital and there's antivenin available for them. In these poor countries, antivenin is not always available. So, basically the family has to sit around squeezing the respirator bag to, keep their loved one alive until, the body sort of neutralizes the venom if it can on its own. But with presynaptic neurotoxins, there's usually some lasting effect until you can grow a new neuron, because it binds to the neuron in such a way that it doesn't come off. So that's Papuan smooth death adder from the wet part of the island. These are granddaughters of the original snakes which I imported. Unfortunately, again, I don't have males, so I can't breed them. So this is another death adder that's from the same island, and this is a captive-born individual from a friend of mine who has passed on, unfortunately. And this is a rugosus, Acanthopus rugosus, which is a rough death adder versus the smooth death adder. It's from a drier region of the island. Oh, didn't see that coming. Man, that was fast. It was tired of me blabbing again, but I'm trying to tell everybody, educate everybody about these snakes. Yeah, back in like 2009 or 2008, I took a dry bite from one of these death adders, and fortunately I had anti-venom on hand. It was a dry bite, but we didn't know that at the time, and I proceeded to behave like it was a wet bite, but I didn't need to get the anti-venom, but I did spend the night in the hospital. I was putting one of these rough death adders in a small Tupperware tub, and right when I was putting the lid on, it leaped up over the edge, and I put the lid down right on top of it, and it whipped its head around and bit me with one fang in the wrist. I immediately put on a pressure immobilization bandage, called my venom doc and told them I was heading to the ER, and they were waiting for me at the ER. So it was an accidental handling bite. Fortunately, the snake did not envenomate me. So that's a snake bite tale from the past. But she was really quick, and I'm glad that I used long handling equipment now. The third death adder, which is a sister of that one, has its butt facing the other direction, so we're not going to really see too much going on. I'm not even sure it's going to feed. Sometimes the head is down at this end, and you're just not going to see anything. Nope. It could be in shed, but since this has gone into the cage, it's going to stay in the cage for 24 hours because once it goes into the cage, I don't give it to another snake, simply because although this snake has been here since it was born, it's just not good practice to put other prey items from cage to cage, just in case something's going on that you're unaware of. You don't want to transmit it. So whenever I do this, or I use the tongs and stuff, it goes into the bleach, generally in between feeding different animals. This way we don't have any problems spreading, even something simple like a respiratory infection, which is somewhat common, despite the fact that we have these elaborate misting systems. Humidity still runs really low in the winter, and that can cause a respiratory infection. So, we mist daily, we dump extra water on the substrate in sort of a vain attempt of keeping the The humidity level's high, but you know, we do our best, but we need to control the heat level, and for that we need the air conditioners running pretty much 24/7. And when it's dry outside like it was this winter, we fortunately haven't had any snow, but we haven't had much rain either. It's very dry. So normally the humidity, we like to keep it above 50%. Sometimes, you know, we've seen it as low as 35% in the cages, which is really bad for shedding and the snakes in general, except for the saw scales who don't really care about dryness because that's the way they live.